Hello, welcome.
Hello, Paul.
Basically, we're just setting up here. Give me 2 seconds. I just want to make sure that it's live and we got audio. My mouth is moving, but I don't see anything happening.
I see the live. It's 25
Maybe it's
seconds.
still attached to my headset here. Let me just make sure.
Yeah.
I was using a headset a second ago, and maybe, oh, yes, it's probably playing in the bedroom here. Okay. Basically, there we go. Perfect. It works. So I'm going to I'm just going to attach you. Perfect. So I'm just going to attach you. Okay. There, you're tagged. We are ready to rumble.
Perfect. Thanks for inviting me again. It's part two. I know we chatted last weekend, or last week, I guess, last Friday, which was a very nice discussion, and I really enjoyed it. And I know you also did enjoy it. So we thought it would be nice to have a part two and see what comes out and go from there. So thanks for the invite again, Paul.
Absolutely. And we may make it a more regular occurrence. We just want to share consciousness and awakening knowledge and basically our leadership from leading by example of how we live our life. So I appreciate that. Thank you. So what we talked about just before we came online was about the energies that are going on. We're in this eclipse portal. What is the date today? The 14th. The energies are running rampant in our lives right now. And you were talking about your roller coasters, and I've had some really intense experiences myself, but at the same time, really intense introspection and awareness starting to show up. Stuff I thought was attacking me and I was victim to, and all this kind of stuff. I've suddenly realized that these are things I've allied with in my journey to basically beat me down and keep me down and give me a dark night of the soul and keep me feeling victimized. So I give my power away to the world where ultimately I own it. This shit is all mine and I've been doing it. It may be coming out through somebody else or whatever, but it's mine. I chose that.
Yeah.
And what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I think that's a very difficult part for a lot of people to be accountable for whatever something is happening into your life, and especially when it's not pleasant, when it's challenging, we feel like we're suffering, it's a hardship. It's really hard to own it and say, you know what, I'm responsible for that. We all want to be responsible when everything is going well, but as soon as something is not going well, we just feel a victim of it and be like, oh, it's because of my dad, it was because of my friends, it was because of the son, or because of the politician, whatever it is, right? But we always trying to give our power away to something else.
Hmm.
And as a result of it, it's hard to address the problem if you don't, if you don't acknowledge it as a problem in the first place.
And
So
ultimately you said the key word is this happening? Victim was what you said, which victim means you give your power to something outside yourself. Is this happening for me or is it happening to me? And if you can say for me, everything changes, because then it's like, this is happening for me? What the hell? Why is this happening for me? Start asking the questions and you'll get downloads, you'll get information. And all of a sudden, this thing that was burning you to death is actually forming you and creating the phoenix for me.
exactly, and for my own experience, and especially over the last maybe 3 years, as I was starting to get more and more conscious about my own thought patterns and my own, my the patterns into my life and all those kind of stuff. Now, every time there is something that is not smooth, or something that it's challenging or whatever, every time I'm very conscious about it, and I say, you have my attention. What's the message? What do I need to understand? And I always chat to my guide. I always ask for guidance if I'm lost, or if I don't know, or if I'm not sure what to do or how to look at it. I always ask, okay, you have my attention. What do I need to understand here? What's the message for me? And every time I ask, I got an answer. So maybe not right away. Sometimes it happens days after, and sometimes he comes in a very weird way. Or one time I received an email. I asked a question because I wasn't sure where to go, what direction to take into my life. I was kind of lost, right? And I was just asking the universe, say, okay, you have my attention. What is the path for me? What do I have to do? And one time I received an email, and that email was kind of like a junk email. I saw that first. I was like, I didn't really pay attention to that. I was like, well, what's that email? It's weird. And I didn't really open it. But the subject on the email was very like was basically giving me the answer. But at first I didn't really pay attention to that. And during the day, and then I thought about it, I'm like, wait a minute, that's the sign I was waiting for. And basically in the subject of the email, that was the answer I was waiting for. And then once I was able to acknowledge it, I'm like, okay, I got it. Now I get it. I know what to do. Obviously, I'm, trying to be very grateful and thankful to the universe, to my guide. But I have so many experiences like that where I ask something and then it happens, especially when I don't wait for it or when I don't expect to get it. It happens in a way that it's always out of the ordinary, and those messages are so like once you get them, you feel so connected, and now you don't have a doubt anymore. You're like, okay, I know. Now I know. And then everything changes because now, because you're gonna make the right, or you're gonna make the decision. And everything, the fear or the doubt you may have, just everything disappears. So that has been my experience, especially over the last 2 3 years. Like, it's insane. So that's why I usually tell people, when you're lost, like, ask your guides. They're here for us. They're here for us. Like, just connect to your heart when you feel lost, when you're emotional, whatever. That's the time to connect to your guide and just ask them, you have my attention. What's the message here? What do I have to do? Inspire me, guide me, show me the way, right? And every time you will have an answer at some point.
It's very important that time, that people recognize that time is when they're triggered, when they're angry, and that anger and that trigger and that energy that you're going to project is basically going to try and block you. It's your ego showing up to say, don't listen, don't get the answer to your message. I just want to be bad. Think of it as a little child having a temper tantrum. That energy comes up and it says, I'm not going to listen to anything and blah 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 blah. Essentially, that's what happens when it's something hard and it's something intense. So take a minute, take a breath, put your hand up to the person you're talking to maybe and say, I got to go over here and look at this for a second. And that is conquering your trigger, and it's going to keep that little boy or little girl from going blah 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 and not listening. Maybe that person is projecting on you and it reminds you of your dad or your mom or your ex or God knows what. It's coming up for a reason. So honor it, give it a little bit of time and a little bit of awareness, and you will get an answer. Because coincidences, this is the way the universe lines up for us. It will basically keep us from blocking ourselves. Our ego is basically saying, you're too small, you're not good enough, you're bad, you're whatever. And basically, everything is a trigger against you staying in that cage. So that little poke sometimes of the universe is going to make you stick your head out and go, what's going on? I'm scared. I'm whatever. But that'll be the best scared you've ever felt, because that is you sticking your head out. You're allowing change. You're allowing triggers to show up. I had an experience recently where somebody projected at me at a community event, and basically this guy just out of nowhere with just projecting all this energy. You can't talk about that. You're not allowed to say, and blah, blah, blah. And I waited until he's done. And I said, are you done yet? And it's like, you don't get to say what I get to say or what I can say. This is a public space. And if you're not okay with it, then let's talk about it, but don't project on me. This stuff is happening for us. I later found out that there was a facet of me that was ashamed still about talking about this stuff. My little inner child. You don't talk about sexuality in public. I wasn't even talking about sex. I was talking about yoni massage. And with two women that were very deeply involved and aware of this kind of stuff. But the people in the community could see the huge connection that was going on. And they said, no, you can't do that. They don't get to choose. They were triggered by the fact that they weren't getting that same response or that same energy. But I could have taken it and been small from that and ran away. And I'm like, oh, I'm not pleasing this leader and I'm not pleasing that person and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, F that. No, I stood up to him and I said, you will never talk to me like that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I talked to a portion of me at the same time. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, you want to stand up in your truth, right? That's just what it is. And whatever we say, especially now we live in a world where people get offended so easily. Whatever you say, sometimes you have no bad intention, or you just say something and people get offended whatever you say, and then they project that to you. Oh, you can say that. If I get offended, it's because of you. Again, they're projecting their power away to someone else and say it's because of you if I got like this, instead of saying, okay, why do I get triggered? What's the message here? Why do I need to heal? Why do I need to address? But
So triggered is the same as offended in your vocabulary. Is that correct? What I hear?
yeah, like offended in terms like, yeah, if you say something to someone and then they get triggered and they feel offended, like, how can you say that? Yeah, they feel angry or whatever at you, and then like, because their interpretation of what you say is different from, I always say, and I made the experience did the experience many times, where sometimes you say something to someone or two different people, and between what you say and one person here and one other person here is very different, like very different stories. And I always say, we don't see the world how it is, we see the world how we are. And that's
Sure.
why
Okay.
sometimes we're gonna say a message, or we're gonna give a message, and someone is just gonna hear the message very differently from what you try to say. It's just because they just hear it based on what they are and not on what the message is. So
Or they
that's
saw
why.
the light in it and they weren't prepared to accept that that is light, and they took it in their shame filter, and they're now projecting the first time it happened back on you, which is maybe their dad or their religion or something, but they're now projecting at you as the trigger, as the one that caused it, which is helping them awaken, but at the same time they've been resisting it their whole life.
Yeah, and we have all those triggers, also like this shield around us to protect us from all the traumas, the bad experiences we had in the past, and then we're going to react based on what we have around us, all this shield. And then if they hear something is going to trigger whatever experience they had in the past or the trauma, they're going to make them react to that and be unhappy, be angry at you, whereas you were not, like, you didn't have bad intention. It's just one specific word triggered this past experience or this memory that is in subconscious mind that they're not even aware of. But that's the way for us to, or that's how life's showing us how to address certain issues that are still in the unconscious part of ourselves. It's just when we interact with someone and then we get triggered by something, we don't even know why. That should be a message for us and say, okay, why am I getting angry now? Why am I getting upset? What's
That's
the
the
deal?
why. That's awakening and awareness, because we're subconsciously reacting all the time. We're doing things out of fear, anger, frustration, etc. But once we say, I'm really triggered right now, I got to go sit and explore this for a minute, because otherwise I'm going to puke all over you and just propagate the wound, which is what our society teaches us. But as we become aware, put your hands on your chest and say, oh, I'm a hurt little child inside and I'm really angry, I'm scared, or whatever. And then you go sit and you breathe and you move that and you start to hold that little child. All of a sudden that thing's no longer a trigger anymore. All of a sudden, maybe you'll get some emotion. Maybe you'll go home and you'll cry and you'll scream or whatever, because you never could express it at that point. This is the awakening process. This is shadow work, literally. Seeing that thing that's hidden and ready to leap out like a whack-a-mole or whatever to surprise you and hurt you or whatever, but it's not there to hurt you. It's been suppressed, and it really just needs to be seen, and it needs to be held, and it needs to be felt.
Exactly. All emotions carry the message. So when you have an unpleasant emotion, it's just a message. Sometimes we can be jealous of someone and say, oh, what the message? The message is perhaps you want to be where they are at in terms of success or in terms of what they are accomplishing in their life. So maybe it's a message from your soul to say, hey, if you want to get there, you need to start removing what is holding you back to get there, right? So it's always a message for us to acknowledge, even if when it's not pleasant. And if we could actually see emotions from that angle, it would really help us evolve much faster and expand much faster, as we'll be able to heal and address the root cause of our problems in the first place. Um, so yeah, and I think, as we were talking about the energy before, we live in a time now, and I'm sure a lot of people, even if you don't feel the energy, you can witness the energy by looking at the sky. Look at the northern lights over the last 2 years. It's been absolutely unbelievable to see where we can witness northern lights. And I've been living in the same place for 12 years. And it's only in the last 2 years that I could be able to see northern lights here. In the last first 10 years I was here, never people were say, oh, there is a northern light notification or alert. Like, but clearly there is something going on with the energies. There is something going on with the sun, and even if you can feel it, because some people can still not feel them, they can still, but they can deny that there is something different just by looking at the sky and looking at all those northern lights and all those signs that we have, that we are getting into a new period of tremendous amount of energies, and this is really helping the collective to address what we were just talking about: the shadow work, all those emotions coming back to the surface, all those triggers, all those healing we have to do. So it's really also part of that. That's why people get offended or get triggered so easily recently, is just because of all these energies just pushing us towards this expansion, towards this healing.
We need to acknowledge that light is energy. So basically all that heat and radiation and the sunburn and stuff like that is affecting our physical body. How else is it affecting our physical body? When we get solar flares, we get gamma radiation and all these things. Those solar northern lights and stuff are these radiations affecting particles in our atmosphere. We're now seeing it all the way down to Florida, I've heard, and other things. So the planet is getting pummeled with light. And if you're in pain, and my body's like aching every day, joints and just feeling like I'm sick or whatever, but I'm not sick. This is ascension flu or awakening flu. We are basically absorbing this light. Now, I want to kind of reference things. So the first spiritual practice I ever learned was Ho'oponopono. And basically they talk about the Unihipili in Ho'oponopono. That's the inner child. And basically, there's this whole story that you read every time you recite Ho'oponopono in its full version, where the child is brought forward and then he's covered in muck and dirt and ink and pain and suffering. And your role is to start to wash their face with a bright cloth. This is literally us emerging from our shadow. You don't know how that inner child has been affected in your youth, in your education, religion, whatever, from your parents. You don't know how much muck has been caked on. So basically, you are in the process of it cracking open. Rumi, one of the great philosophers, says the crack is where the light shines in. And basically, this is where it all ties together. We're getting cracked and cracked and cracked. Our mud is all dry, and there's these little shattering points going on. It's not shattering you, it's shattering the illusion of you being a mucky little boy or girl, and you're not in your power and all this kind of stuff. It's shattering around us with this light from the universe. And it's also coming in through people on Facebook and in conversations like this. They're like, well, what if they're right? How come this feels strange and it's triggering me? And what kind go back, breathe deep, feel these energies. Why were they triggering you? All we did was talked about light and radiation and our experiences, because you were drawn to come here and talk and receive this in this moment. And everybody's going to get the seeds planted within them so that they can bloom. And how does a rose bloom? It starts in shit, and it basically rises out of with light and the heat and the energy of God or source or the sun, whatever you want to call it. And you become this beautiful, magnificent flower. But it couldn't exist without shit. It couldn't exist without the sun. It couldn't exist without the light. So we're ultimately feeling that right now. You are, maybe your seed is finally just about to push that first leaf out of the dirt, and it smells like shit and it feels awful and everybody's gone and all this kind of stuff, but you needed it.
Yeah.
Because how many people were feeding off you? How many of your friends and family and all these things were stealing your energy because they're still holding on for dear life to their shit? The light is going to expose all that. You're going to say, no more. You're going to talk to me like that. And you start rising out of the shit.
It's funny because you use this analogy with the mud, and I usually use the analogy with the ice. With iceberg, and the sun is like bombarding us with energy and starting to melt the ice. And as you melt the ice, you're going back in time. You're going more deeper and deeper into your experience, and all those emotional blockages you may have had maybe 10, 20, 50 years ago. And then as he melted, then he come back to the surface. It's not he's coming back to the surface. It's basically all the stuff that you're able to remove little by little. It just helps you to go even deeper and deeper. So every time there is a stronger energy, And as you start this journey of shadow work and healing journey, and you start to shed one thing and remove one thing and heal another thing, you're like, oh, and then you're gonna feel good for some time, and then you're gonna have more energy, and then you're gonna even go deeper, and then like, oh, something else is gonna come out. So basically, as the ice is melting, you're just going deeper and deeper in time, and on those traumas and experiences that we need to address. So it's and everybody, whether you are conscious of it or not, everybody somehow is affected by those energies, even if you don't believe in energy, even if you think it's just pure speculation, there's no science behind it, which is not even true. But we all, like, the world is changing, and a lot of people are struggling right now, and they're just struggling because of what's happening. The energy is just pushing the collective to evolve. We're in a
they're
time where
struggling because it's resistance. Yep.
Yeah, it's a time of, we talked a bit about it last week, regarding the different time, the 24,000 year cycle with the ascending phase and the contracting phase. We're in this expanding phase, and everything is being pushing the collective to expand. So we all affected at individual level. We all at different levels and different layers and different, in our journey, but we all affected by that, whether you're conscious of it or not. And that's why a lot of people right now are struggling with depression, or struggling with mental issues, mental health, or even physical ailments. Is just because everything is just pushing towards the surface for us to start to address and heal, because that's where we're going. So either you can resist it, but how much can you resist it? If there is this river flowing, and you can resist the flow, but how long can you hold on for? At some point, you're going to get so tired that you won't be able to hold anymore, because it's going to be too painful. And that's what we call a very hard, like, painful experience, like life experience, is because you're
Or
holding
the rock will be so eroded it'll disappear by the end. Even something so strong as that. Resistance is futile to the flow of what's
exactly.
going on. An interesting one, because you're science-based, I read a study that basically said they grew some plants in dirt. They kept a control of how much dirt and how much it weighed. They grew the plant, and then they kept track of the water and the light and stuff like that. And the soil did not actually lose any minerals, nutrients. Once they took the plant out and put the dirt back in, it was net zero. So it's all light and water based. Yeah. The creation of a plant. So you can have a 10-pound potato plant that did do 20 pounds of potatoes or whatever, and you pull it out afterwards and the soil is exactly the same. It just tells you it's a creation medium. It allows the light to receive. The seed goes in, it receives the light and the water, and it basically, well, how much is a potato, for example? Probably 80% of it is water. Well, it just goes straight into the fruit and all these things. So can you imagine what's going on in you with light coming in from the top, you ingesting water, food, nutrients, etc. You're changing and shifting, but ultimately you probably put out almost all of what you put in, and but your weight changes, your complexion changes, your whatever. So that's how vibrational and energetic that we are as beings, and everything that we see.
Yeah, and water holds information. So that's, light is information, and really the information of the light is held in the water that we have, that will fill the cells. And based on that and it's funny, because there is even like science behind it when it comes to the heart, the human heart. And based on what the biology says, it's just a pump or whatever. But actually, in the heart, there is, in the left ventricle of the heart, the blood starts to move in a spiral formation, and that's how it gets energized, or that's how it receives the life force before going throughout the body, and then nourishing the cells and nourishing the different part of the body. So there is this, life force that it was called chi, or that was called, prana, or in ancient civilizations. So everything is happening, and the heart is actually the portal between the energy world and the physical world. This is where, through the blood, and blood is a lot of water, obviously. That's how it gets energized, and then it gets, all the information from the energy just get transferred to every part of the body through the blood, and how in the left ventricle it get it moves in the spiral formation. So, we are much more than what we have been led to believe, and there is much more than. And the funny thing is, the more I wake, the more I learn, the more I realize that I don't know anything. It's a really crazy, contradictory, thought, when you're like, oh, you keep learning stuff, but every time I learn something, I'm like, oh, I don't know anything, because instead of giving me answers, you give me more questions and more questions and more questions. So, yeah, so we're just gonna keep expanding, and the knowledge is gonna keep changing as we keep expanding our knowledge, and we're just going to keep discovering or rediscovering a lot of the stuff that ancient civilizations knew thousands and thousands of years ago.
And truthfully, this is all dormant inside of us, right? You talked about water holding information. Well, our DNA holds information. It holds knowledge. We have all this past life and energies that have come into us that is now expressing itself. Stuff that has been hidden out of books and been destroyed because they don't want anybody to have it, but it's coming through people like us that are delving into ourselves, finding things. I can tell you stuff about the Temple of Isis that's not written in any book I've ever had, because Isis is a guide, Mother Mary, and etc. And I am embodying that because I was part of the Temple of Isis at one point. I was a high priest and a priestess in many past lives, because it's powerful. It's dealing with our light energy, our creation energy, our flow energy. We may be physical beings, but if you want to create another physical being, two light beings of opposite polarities must join together, and all this complex scientific stuff happens. We can call it a sperm hitting an egg or whatever, but there's so much light and so much energy involved. This cataclysm happens. What do they talk about in the movie Lucy or whatever? This ATP or whatever energy goes in, and it's that blue stuff that was in her stomach. But she's like awakening like this because it's dribbling into her system. That's only supposed to happen to babies, but this is the powerful act of creation that comes from a woman and a man being sexual with each other, sharing pleasure, all these things. It's all part of us. Why do you think they suppress our movement of energy in our own body through orgasmicness and pleasure and this kind of stuff? Well, you're going to be a pretty angry person that's pretty victimized if you can't do anything, but everybody's reaching out, trying to get their needs met, and doing it in these ways that basically make them feel ashamed or dirty or whatever. But that's a societal dirty. What could be expressing your pleasure with another human being? There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you're good with that and your story doesn't say that you're somehow bad or dirty or whatever. And unfortunately, some of this is propagated by our own species. I hear it's a thing where women slut shame each other and this kind of stuff because one's having sex and the other one isn't having sex. Look at all of our stuff, things like income tax and government and all these things. These people have inserted themselves as leaders, just like a king, and basically tithed you or stolen your money through income tax. Well, if you go back and you look at the history of all this kind of stuff, the population of Canada, or at least I don't know about US and whatever, never actually agreed to income tax. It was a War Measures Act. It was required to pay back all the money that somebody created and had a war, and they never revoked it and basically said, this is what runs the country. Well, what runs the country before there was taxes? Well, the king or the person at the top that had from their money, they would create roads and all this kind of stuff. Very little of what we pay in our tithing to our king or IRS or CRA or whatever really goes to supporting our country at all. If you do the math, there's another science fact. Everybody's given $10,000 to $20,000, and there's 20 million people in Canada, and let's say a quarter of them don't pay in some way, shape, or form. The numbers just don't add up.
Oh, and I mean, the whole system doesn't make any sense, and a lot of people are awakening to that fact, because why would you pay taxes in the first place when the money can just be printed, push a button?
By them, yeah.
So if they can make more money and push a button, why don't you print more money to build the hospital? And why do I need to pay taxes to supposedly build the hospital or participate building the hospital? So everything has been, like, it's just people are not financially how do you call, like aware, or whatever. So they don't really understand how it works. But in the first place, it doesn't make any sense. Like, look at when we had this crisis in 2020. All of a sudden, the government said, "Oh, don't worry, the businesses, you have to work from home or you have to shut down your business, but we're going to give you money." Where does the money come from? They just print it. They just push a button, print the money, and then give them to the businesses or individuals. So why can they do the same thing? Why do I have to pay taxes in the first place? It just makes no sense. It's just to keep us enslaved. And you pay taxes on your income, and then you pay taxes on your house, and then you pay taxes on whatever you buy. So you pay, I don't know how many times, taxes on the same thing that you own. So at the end of the day, how much do you keep? You keep nothing. And it's so that you just keep, you stay in that
You're a
rat
slave,
system
essentially.
in the
You're
lack.
trying to
So
pay
if
them.
you just want to keep us in the lack, it's just about feeling like I need more. I always need more. I always need more, because so so that's how they've been doing it. And that's why we call it a debt system. An enslavement system is just to keep us being in this lack, and just keep checking as much as possible from everybody, and not obviously educating people on how does it work and why they're doing this in the first place, so that people stay ignorant and they feel even happy. A lot of people are even happy to pay taxes. They're like, oh, I'm happy to contribute to society. I'm okay to pay taxes every month or from my income, because I know the money is going towards constructions or road or maintenance, whatever. And people are even happy to be enslaved. So that's the crazy part of the
Well,
story, is like,
and why do we as Canadians give $50 billion to the Ukraine or whatever from fake money and all this kind of stuff? The Ukraine's got to stand on its own or whatever, and there'll be people that'll hate this or whatever. But if you look at the amount of money that's been sent to them, it hasn't gone to the people.
I mean, you see what's going on in the US right now. There's a lot of stuff happening right now, and I'm not taking any sides. I'm just, sharing my perspective. But, they've been showing that basically the money that was supposed to be sent to somewhere or to something for specific use, the money was basically siphoned or used for other purposes. So they just give a story. That's how it works in the corporate world. I worked for a corporation for a long time, so I know, like, they always give a story and say, oh, this is why we're doing it. So they give the story to the people, so that the people are okay to and accept the decision. But that's just a facade. That's just a story they give people. And that's how it's
Media campaign.
politics or
Yep.
the news is just a facade, a story, just to make people, give them, or tell them, are we giving the truth, or are we giving you what's happening? And then, but in fact, they're just giving you a story so that
That
you can
often
accept.
isn't even true.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it's just for you to accept whatever decision they want to make or whatever things they want to implement. They're just going to give you a story, and sometimes they have to use fear to make people accept whatever decision they want to make. So my advice, especially for people that are starting on this journey, is just to detach from all of this. This is just a play. This is just a theater running, and a distraction for people to stay distracted and stop focusing inward. So it's
So
just
those
detach from.
choices that they can do to make that happen, what would you suggest, like in their real life?
I mean, stop listening to the news. Like, stop
TV.
taking sides for whatever story they are trying to tell us, whether it's for a war, whether it's for economy, whatever. They always give us stories, and so that people will stay divided and choose sides. Or
Been
this guy is
happening
good,
for centuries. Wars
this
have
guy
been
is
created
bad.
over it.
So
Yep.
they all do this so that we stay divided. We stay distracted by the story. So I would just say, stop listening to this, detach yourself from that, because once you understand we are the one creating our own stories, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter anymore, because whatever they're going to show you, whatever they're going to try to manifest at the collective level, is not going to change and affect your life if you stay in the driver's seat. If you're the one and understand you're the one driving your life, you're the co-creator of your life. And they sold us a story for so many years so that we could create, and that's what we call his story and not history, like his story. So
Mhm.
they always gave us those narrative so that we stay in a certain state of being, in order to manifest their story they want us to manifest at a collective level. So
Well, essentially, what you're saying is every person's reality is unique, and then there's this thing over top of collective reality that's created by the media and education and all this kind of stuff that basically starts to inject possibilities into our reality that we either line up with or don't line up with. But most people are in the trance or the illusion that collective reality is it, and a few people set what comes out in news, what fear is injected into your head, all to basically make money off of entrancing us into an illusion which wasn't even ours. So the change starts within. The change starts with
Yeah.
self-love first.
Yeah, everything has been designed externally to shape our mind. And as I said last time, the mind is a projector of our own reality. So as it's gonna shape our mind and have this box that gonna look a certain like very narrow box, it's gonna shape our mind so that we're going to manifest whatever they want us to manifest in our life. And as a lot of people are manifesting the same thing because we have been shaping the same way, we're gonna manifest their collective reality that they want us to manifest because they know they're not the one creating their reality. We are the one creating their reality. So they just shape us so that we can create their reality they want us to create. So
And
they
and
just
that
using us, they're just using us to create whatever they want. But once you wake up from the dream and you realize, okay, I've been shaped to believe certain things, but I'm more than what I've been taught to believe. And then you start expanding your mind, and then you start detaching from all the stories they've been telling you for so many years, and you start to have your own story and your own, your own thoughts and your own dream. Then everything outside becomes irrelevant, because everything outside is just to manifest their own story. But I don't want to manifest their own story. I want to manifest my own story. Why? I want to manifest my own life. So I'm just going to be the one in charge of my mind and say, you know what, I want to shape and expand the box of my mind so that I can manifest my own story, no matter what they're trying to do on the collective level. If it
right.
makes
And
sense.
that's essentially awakening out of the dream, out of the illusion. You are basically have a programmed reality, a subconscious that's constantly trying to protect you based on a story outside that's been pushed into your ear since the minute you were born. You're in lack. You got to have a job. You got to get married. You got to do work, and you got to do all this kind of stuff, which was never our core alignment. Look at something simple like Disney that goes into the ears of little kids and they listen to it 16,000 times a day. Are they entranced? Are they hypnotized to get married or to grow up, get a job, get an education, get married, have some kids, have a house, get a car, and then die? That's
Exactly.
the story for everybody. How much of that is replaying in your mind? How many little girls have a scrapbook of all their favorite wedding dresses and the flowers and all this kind of stuff because they've been creating this dream that marriage is going to solve everything? How many of us are finding out that marriage doesn't do that? We are smashed by a collective belief that never actually shows up. I'm going to get married and I'm going to be sexual and I'm going to be all this kind of stuff. There's no guarantee. More than likely, your wife or husband is traumatized and you're in a sexless marriage and you're lost to this program that was never really meant to be in the first place.
Yeah.
It
And
was
that's
never for
why,
us.
and
Go ahead.
that's why, I think it has changed a little bit now, or I think it's starting to change. But 5 years ago, if you were going to a place, a random place, asking random people, what's your dream life? You will realize that most of the people will give you the same answer. And
Absolutely.
it's just because it's not their dream life. It's a dream life that they have been led to believe, or they have been shaped to believe that it is a dream life. So society tells us from when we were a kid, a dream life looks like this, the American dream, being famous, having this money. Like, that's basically what they've been telling us, or they've been selling us to say, okay, that's a dream life, that's how we should be, that's what we should be believing. And that's why a lot of people were just pursuing this type of life, not because that's what they wanted, but because that's what they've been led to believe that's what they wanted. And then
And
once you start detaching from that, you realize, okay, having a degree, going to university doesn't make sense anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. It's not about being a doctor. It's not about being this or going after this. It's about connecting to your heart and say, what will make you really happy? Forget about the rules, forget about the standards, forget about all the stuff they've been telling you. What you as a human being, before you get into this society, what will make you very happy? And then go after that. That's just all matters. And that's what I want for my kid. I don't care whatever path she wants to follow, as long as that's her path that will make her happy. That's a path that will connect to her heart and say, you know what, I want to be a musician. I don't want to work, or I don't care, as long as she can connect to that. And
mhm.
and that's what awakening is. It's also realizing all of this and say, you know what, I'm going to connect to myself, my true self, and going inward, healing, so that then you can align yourself with your true path.
Absolutely. Now, I see three key programs that are underneath all of this thing. One is move love outside yourself. So you don't realize that your love as you start, make it in a wife, having kids, pleasing. The next one is pleasing. What better way to get you pleasing people than not serving yourself? Is like, oh, I got to make Kevin happy today, and I better let him have some this or that or whatever. And then the third one is service. And this is the fucking gotcha one, because we're all here to be of service and caring of other people. But when you're in service to make money, and you're in service to basically please other people, make them safe, fix them, you feel sorry for them or whatever, these three programs are running underneath everything. It's like, am I going to rock the boat? And I have to be in service or whatever. You're not meant to rock the boat. So being selfish is actually evil based on their program. Selfish is literally self-loving. If I choose myself without harming another or taking from another, that is the most loving thing you can ever do yourself. I'm not going to help you move. You haven't helped me move the last 3 times, and now you want my help? F you, kind of thing. That kind of stuff is the program that people utilize to basically feed off us, and we don't live our life. They want us to live outside, give you love, and then I'm like, only got 5% left in my life, and it's like, Kev, when are you going to give me some love back or whatever? It was never your responsibility to give me love, but don't give freely, give from your abundance, which is very different than giving a part of yourself.
Don't
so
say
we're
yes
fracturing ourselves. Go ahead.
No, don't say yes to someone if it's a no to yourself. And that's what I've been learning or for years, because I mean, I was a people pleaser, because I'm very empathetic, and I could feel the emotion of someone, or the disappointment if you say no, or if you're and obviously the people pleaser go with rejection. You're afraid of rejection, you want to be part of that something. So I was that for years. And as you start changing yourself and say, you know what, now I want to do something that is a yes to me. If it's a no to me, then I'm not going to do it, because it's also about protecting yourself. It's also about loving yourself. That's no to me.
Loving yourself, less protecting. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not I don't like that, or I don't want to do this. So why would you force yourself to do it? And that's how. And then you have the guilt behind it. Oh, you didn't do it. Oh, you're a bad person. Blah blah blah. All the programs running. So people pleaser, it's a big thing.
And it's huge to see that in yourself. Like when you're addressing someone and they're asking you to do something or whatever, you're going to feel conflict inside yourself. Feel the conflict. Start to realize your why. It's like, oh, I'm trying to please this person. And when that guy came up and assaulted me about my life purpose and all this kind of stuff the other day, it was like, no, you don't get to decide anymore. Collectively, they want us to let everybody validate us. And it's not about validating itself. If I feel this thing in my heart, I should be able to sing it from the top of the mountains. If people show up and their energy loves it, then I'm doing something. And that's all the evidence I need. But if other people come and say, stop, you're bad, don't do that, little boy, you're probably triggering them. Do a self-assessment. But if other people are good with it, it's probably them playing the program even longer than or stronger than you. So we end up starting to own ourselves and love ourselves and self-validate, which is self-love. And all of a sudden one day it's like, I don't have to please my mommy and daddy to be a good little boy anymore or whatever. I'm an adult man and I have truth that people need to show. And if it triggers them, great. They don't have to be around me. Their choice. But if you want to come at me and tell me that I'm bad for talking about stuff that makes you feel triggered, I just awakened you, gave the opportunity. Maybe you were lurking and over listening, and you shouldn't have been there, because if you were with me, I would have got consent before we even started, and I wouldn't have triggered you. But if you watch from the outside, guess what?
Yeah. And we're not responsible for how someone is going to react. We're responsible for what we say. Absolutely. So as long as you say it in a loving way and you're aligned, it's aligned with your truth and it's what you are, and you don't have bad intention, the way the person is going to react based on what you say, it's out of your control. It's just out of your control. You can't just say, oh, like I'm gonna feel guilty because I said something that it took from the wrong way, or it got upset or whatever. It's out of your control.
Same with what they think of you. Yep.
Yeah, we're only responsible for what we say. So we have to stop, feeling, oh, I can't say this because I'm afraid. No, if you feel the way, if you want to say it in a loving way, just say it. It's your truth. You have the right to feel that way. You have the right to say it. Now, how he's going to react to that, it's none of your it's none of your business. It's just none of your business.
And essentially, you're like the sun in that moment. You are truth. You are light. You are shining a truth and a light on those other people, which will either awaken them and grow them, or it might hide them because it's burning their skin or whatever. But you are truth. You are the light, literally, in that moment. Light projects out of my eyes, out of my words, and out of my body. And I know when that guy came at me, he didn't like the fact that I was light and awakening these people, and they were soaking it up. They were like flowers. They could hardly say words because they knew it was all truth. I kept checking in. Does that feel right in your heart? And it's like, yeah, I don't know why this is all true, but it is. And thank you for sharing it. That's what we're doing right here.
Yeah.
We're shining so much light.
And my throat chakra was blocked for years and years and years, just because I was afraid to tell to say my truth. I was afraid to be myself, because I was afraid of abandonment or rejections, whatever it was, based on my past and traumas and all those kind of stuff. And and then you become a people pleaser, and then you never say your truth, and it was blocked. And I remember I was in an event, and I was going through, all these meditations and all this breathing and all this stuff, and we were doing the seven chakras and all this kind of stuff. And I had like, it's like as if I had a huge potato stuck in my throat. It was purely energy, but I had this huge blockage, like for years and years of just me not saying my truth. And that was kind of the realization, like, stop. I have to stop now, because do I want to get sick, or do I want to have a disease? So that's how it started. I have to stop. I love myself, and now, what? I'm gonna start expressing my truth, no matter what, no matter how people is gonna react. I don't care. And since I've starting this journey, my throat is getting better and better. I can tell that the energy is flowing much more now. I'm not saying it's 100%, but it's way better than it was even 6 months ago, a year ago. And it's just a result of years and years of people pleasing and years of not telling you truth. So even if you say, oh, I'm not gonna, we are harming ourselves without knowing it. We are harming our physical bodies. And
Yeah.
um,
And you'll get a disease in that chakra. You'll have throat cancer or thyroid cancer or something which didn't happen for you, and you'll go crazy, or you'll get sick, or basically it'll put you into some kind of crisis. This is the journey we're all on. So if we start looking at what diseases are in our body, what sicknesses are going, etc., they all have a purpose. And I was getting things like diabetes in my body and all these kind of things, and gallbladder, which is self-anger. I was extremely angry at myself because I was pleasing all these people and doing all these things and not getting repaid for it, not getting, and they'd take and they would never give back. So I'm now at the point, it's like, okay, I freely gave. My fault, my problem. So now I have to share with boundaries. It's like, okay, if you want to come in or whatever, and you want to work with me or whatever, I might trigger you. So don't shame me or project on me afterwards that you can't stand the truth, because I'm just going to tell you the truth. I won't blow smoke up your ass or make you feel good or try and ease it for you. This awakening journey is about fire. It's about light. It's about truth. And sometimes I'll say it. I won't say F you in a whole bunch of really angry words or whatever. I might say fuck, just to get people out of their reverie, because it's kind of like a slap in the head. I know with my parents, I even say that word, and my mother was shaming me yesterday, and it's like, no, you don't get to talk to me about that. I almost ran into the back of a car and I said, holy fuck, and I was scared and all this kind of stuff. And then she said, what kind of dirty language is that coming out of your mouth? And I was like, afterwards, at first, and my little kid was like, oh, my mother's mad at me or whatever. And then afterwards, it was like, I was in a really traumatic situation just now, and I saved myself. Fuck you. I didn't even say it to her face, but that's like, okay, if you can't stand that word because it's too triggering for you or whatever, then maybe we have to be around each other less. Because if I got to change to make you happy, I lose.
Yeah, that's what it is. We want to please people because we are afraid of hurting people, but by doing so, we are hurting ourselves.
Absolutely.
So that's how we have to change it. Like, if it's a no to yourself, you cannot say yes, because that's what is self-love. Self-love is acknowledging this and say, you know what? I love myself too much to hurt myself. And as a result of this, I'm going to continue to tell my truth, no matter what happened, no matter what people think. I don't care, because I know I'm not hurt. Like, I'm just, you know,
You're rising
releasing,
up.
giving all. I'm aligned with who I am. Now people will like me for what I am, and not for what I show to them. So that's a big difference. You know,
Exactly. And
the
that
only,
we're giving that gift to people right here. We're talking about shit that might trigger people. We might make them uncomfortable or whatever. We're giving that gift because it's just two men that have finally found their voice, and we're talking about the truth of what we found, and none of it has any agenda or anything other than helping other parts of ourselves to move up, because we're all one. We're all part of God. We're all part of this collective reality. There's a pieces of us that have not been woken up yet. This part just happens to have. And if you follow quantum physics and timelines and all this kind of stuff, it's going into all of our facets, and we've lived every one of our choices. And ultimately, the whole of the energy that we are, maybe at fraction to go into other timelines, like the Matrix movie or whatever, when Neo was in the architect's office. But eventually it all comes back and it collapses. And all the lessons that are learned in all the different ways that we chose our life and came, ultimately it all goes to all parts of us.
yeah.
So you can look at that as other people in the reality, or you can look at that as Paul in the multiverse and blah, 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 which has become popular culture now in its truth. And all this, it's all quantum physics. We're
Oh,
making changes right now. Go ahead.
oh no, I mean, like, and the science is clear, because I mean, we talked about that a little bit last week. And I've always wanted to bridge those two worlds, because we stay in the belief system, and I want people to go into knowing system, instead of believing system. And to me, the best way for them to go into a knowing system is to kind of leverage science to show that it's not just an assumption or a claim. It's actually backed up, and more backed up by science. And obviously quantum physics is a big one. And when it comes to energy, when it comes to all of this kind of stuff, it's real. It's real. Now you can choose not to believe in it, and that's your choice. That's free choice. But people can go back to me and say, oh, like, energy is just a word, that trendy word that people like to use in spiritual community. No, it's actually science. And I can show so many publications, so many articles, and I wrote a book, and there's all the references that actually backing up this, the energy world. And it's just one aspect. There is so many things. So it's time to acknowledge that it's not a belief system anymore. It's a knowing system. It's true. This is what we are. And now you can decide to not believe in it, but that's your own choice. And if you want to keep throwing your power away to certain events or whatever, that's your own choice. I'm not sure it's going to do good to you in the short term. Maybe that's what you need to wake up to awake, and that's okay. But we just can't say now it's pure speculation, or it's just a claim. It's actually real.
Well, and to kind of try and wrap this up, because we got about 6 more minutes. There's a lot of stuff that I'm seeing right now that's saying that this portal of the eclipse right now is a quantum reset. We're collapsing timelines, and we're moving out of the stories and the beliefs, which I believe beliefs were just in the dream. We were in the dream. We created a belief that I'm not worthy, I don't have money, I can't have a relationship, all this kind of stuff. And it's protecting us. It's our conscious protector. That's why I was careful about the word putting protections in, because our subconscious is doing things to us. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. I'm not worthy. You'll say it in between. Cancel, cancel, cancel. Because your subconscious mind believes that, and it's the smaller I am, the safer I am. Well, you and I have kind of rebelled against that. Call it our ego, or edge God out is the acronym. That ego is trying to keep us small so that we don't rock the boat and attract the attention of an adult or somebody more powerful than us. And we're moving out of our victim and giving that power away into empowerment, right at the top of your screen right now. It's coming within us, and it comes from our mind, comes from our beliefs. And as we collapse these quantum timelines, all the knowledge, all the awareness, there's a rich you, there's a lover you, there's a person that never had a failed marriage or whatever you want to call it, that's in your timeline somewhere, and it's all going to collapse, and the best of it is all going to come together right here and right now in the quantum reality.
Yeah, and it's going to collapse if you do the work. And if you if you're able to manifest this frequency to attract this timeline, the same frequency of the timeline. That's exactly what quantum physics is. Quantum physics states that everything exists at the quantum level. So it
Mhm.
means if we just put that in our own life, every version of Paul exists. You
Mhm.
have the homeless, or you have the multimillionaire Paul. Everything exists. So now it's just a matter of, now if you want to manifest a certain timeline, you will have to match the frequency of that specific timeline into your life. So Paul will have to behave as if he was already a millionaire to become one. So it's always like, believe in it so that you can see it, and not the opposite. You cannot just say, oh, I'm going to do it, or I'm going to feel that way once it happens into my life. It's never going to happen into your life if you're not able to match the frequency of that outcome.
So I agree with you completely, and I'll even take it to one more level. There's a part of us that already knows that, where that energy is accessible to us. Our self-belief that it's not possible is the only thing that's blocking it. So
Exactly.
basically, instead of having to believe it and fake it until you make it or whatever, I just have to let that quantum timeline show up. And there's free will that comes into it. If you don't believe you're worthy of it, you're fucked before you start, right here and right now. That's why The Secret doesn't work. That's why all these quantum examples don't work. Go inside right now, hold your heart, breathe,
Exactly.
and say, I have a multi-million. You've taught me something. I have a multi-million air facet, and all the money that belongs to him is going to show. And I'm going to be collapsed into a timeline that's not this one, that's all restricted and whatever. I may wake up tomorrow in a multi-million dollar house in the acreage that I've been talking about, ready to go, because that timeline was dominant.
Yes, and you like, if it doesn't happen, you will have to understand why it's not happening, why it's holding you against that outcome. It's exactly your belief system, maybe your trauma, your protection, all the stuff that makes you believe you're not worthy of being that person, or you're not worthy of receiving all of this. So that's really that's what healing is and shadow work is. It's trying to remove all the stuff that don't serve you so that you can attract and you can become whatever you desire, your heart desire. So it's
And
it's all about, it's not about doing something, it's about removing all those layers that we've been accumulating for years and years and years, in order for you to feel the frequency of that outcome so that you can actually live as if you was already there.
and what if the very reason your body hurts, you're in struggle, you're in resistance, etc., is your in belief or not belief in yourself? And
No,
literally, when they
that's
say surrender, when they say let go, this is what they're talking about. Let go of all the things that have defined you. Say, I'm an engineer and I'm a dad and I'm this and I'm that. All those things don't mean anything. All it means is Paul's a really powerful guy and he's got this awareness. Now I just have to let go of all the things that keep me from having my dream life. That's
exactly.
simple. It's a
And
choice. I choose right here and right
yes,
now.
and that's how, we were talking about before, shaping your mind, and our mind is just a little box. So of course, in your little box, this version of you doesn't exist, or is impossible. It's never gonna happen. You're never gonna manifest it, never. Because first of all, you need to convince yourself, yes, I deserve it. I can become that person, and
Mhm.
then life is gonna show you what is
What's
holding
in
you
your
back,
way? Yep.
what's in a way to attract that outcome, and then you will have to do the work, you will have to heal yourself in order to get there. But it starts with convincing yourself, you know what, yes, I can become that person, yes, you know what, it's possible. Because if, and that's why we say believe it, and then you see it, and not the other way around. What we've been taught is, I will only believe what I see. But if we only see less than 1% of what's possible, then you only believe in less than 1% of what's possible, and then you're just gonna live in that cage, which is your mind. That's why, we
Which is the box. And I love you saying that because that's what living outside the box means. Stepping outside of your guaranteed safe playground that has fences 20 feet tall, and you're living outside the box and you're saying, I trust that I can make money without having a job and all my needs will be met. I've been believing that and somehow it's been working out. But there's a part of me that already knows that this works out and I'm ready and I've made multi-million dollars from it and I have $1 million acreage and house, and this timeline will collapse. And I'm okay with that because it was my learning timeline. It was not the timeline that I was living freely. It was the timeline that beat me into awakening.
exactly,
And that's what we're doing.
exactly. It's beautiful. I think it's been an hour, so I don't want to keep
This
talking.
is the best live I've had yet because we shared a lot of truth. There's been 2 or 3 people watching regular. They feel the energy. And I'm so grateful.
That's awesome. And I mean, I love to talk about any of those topics. I could speak about that all day. That's really what I love. So I love to share. I love to do that with you, Paul. So anytime you
We'll
want to
do it
have another
again.
conversation, you know what
Next,
you find me.
next week, same time, same place, 12:30 Mountain is where we started. Make this go viral, people. If this touched your heart and it felt really good and it's truth to you, send it to your friends. They may not want to listen to it. They may say, what are these two guys talking about, or whatever. But the right people, this is all the information they need to get out of their hole. This is the rainbow bridge. It's basically all the truth that we've came from living human 3D lives, and we've handed it to you on a silver platter. There's no course, there's no fix you or energy healing or whatever. If you can get around this in your mind and in your heart, it will awaken you spontaneously.
Yeah, it starts with knowledge. Start to expand the box. That's what we're doing, is just to try to expand the box of people that they're listening, so that they say, oh, you know what, maybe they're right, maybe it's possible, maybe I can become that person. And that's how it starts. So
share it to your friends, share it to the people that are waking up, because this will change your life. This will be in my YouTube group. It's called New Perspectives on Reality. Join my group. Just search it. And Kevin and I used to do a New Perspectives on Reality with a young woman called Anya Day. That was about 3-4 years ago. But this is powerful. When you get two light workers in a room and you start talking about truth, this is awakening stuff. This is stuff that'll pop people open if they're willing to listen. If we're triggering you, it's probably a good thing. Just lean into it. Come back, listen again, and you'll be surprised, because there was so much truth shared here. It's so much in my heart and so beautiful, and I'm so grateful.
So, yeah, grateful for everyone. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for everyone who's listened. Like I said, look us online. What was your website again, just so we've got it?
Empowerment, so same as what is written on the screen. So empowermentbykevlan.com. And they can also find me on YouTube, same, Empowerment by Kevlan. So I'll also be posting those live, same as your YouTube channel, Paul, so that we can reach as many people as possible. And then, you can reach out to me on Facebook. Obviously, there is my I guess my login or my name there. So.
And you can work with anyone online, anywhere in the world, I'm assuming. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Same here. And mine's awakeningyou.net, just like it says at the bottom, without the space, without the exclamation, .net. And we're here to give you the nudge, give you the push, give you whatever, because we found something. We want to make your life easier. We want to make the path less filled with bramble bushes and struggle and other things. And this is about as much truth as I've ever shared with another human being. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to end stream.